This is one of our plant forum meetings that we do periodically where we're just going to be discussing different plants in different people's gardens. And we will start with Mark Delapine from Berkeley talking about this corner of his garden that he's been working on for years. And Mark, why don't you take it away and just, you can either signal me or say, next image, but
Oh, thanks. Okay,
we'll
that'll
start
work.
with your plan.
All right. So this is something I drew up. I never made a plan for how I wanted the garden to be and then executed the plan. I just found it handy to have a picture sometimes to help envision what was going on. So that's what this is. And it's, I don't know, it's pretty old, 15 to 20 years probably. And so the pond is shown. And what we're going to look at tonight is in the upper right-hand corner in this drawing, where it says birches, and the pond and the back path. So there are the three words right there in that corner. Those are the three focuses. It's sort of, you'll see it starts from a pretty blank slate. And one of the early things that I put out into the garden was were the birch trees and the Australian tea tree, the Leptospermum lavagatum. It's a particular cultivar, but I sure don't remember which one. Something I picked up at Berkeley Horticultural Nursery. So I guess we could go to the oldest slide. That's it. So the little fuzzy thing right in the center left is yep, that's the one. That's the Australian tea tree early on. And in the far corner, there are looks like two clumps of the European white birch, Betula pendula. And so they're just plunked in the ground, and the ground was just mowed weeds for years and years. With I think we had a fig tree and a persimmon tree, but everything else was just whatever blew in. So this was getting started. I decided if I was I started getting interested in planting plants anyway for the bird life and beneficials, just wanting to see things in the garden that were alive. So I did a lot of reading of, what kind of trees and what kind of plants are of use to birds. And so I decided if I was going to have trees and I want to see them in my lifetime, I had to pick some and decide where they could be. Since the park has tall trees just on the other side of this fence, I decided this would be a safe place not to lose too much sun. So I put the birches, and they're one of the tallest things in the back. And so is the Australian tea tree. It's pretty large now. So, all right. So it starts off like that, and it's just, the ground is just mowed. And early on, I decided I needed to get in some. Well, let's actually, maybe we could go to the next slide and look at the. It's kind of shows the whole back. So this is that whole corner behind the building, and you can see it's pretty much a blank slate. I've already plunked some plants in the ground, but look how much taller the birches are in the corner there. So they took off, and the little Australian tea tree is coming up, and it'll get a lot bigger. And I think those were those little white clumps, and that's not even the area of interest, but those are kind of that was a plant that interested me. Something brownie eye. It just had an interesting.
Oh, Calocephalus.
Yes, yeah, that's it. Yeah, so but you can't. There's so few pixels in this picture. It's so old. You would never know. It's the white clump. In the middle of the picture, though, are the gunnera, and I planted the gunnera out. That was one of the other big early things to go in the ground, and yeah. So anyway, so this is where it starts, and then what happened next was I started working on putting in pathways. So this is the back path, and you can see the Australian tea tree kind of has this reddish foliage and kind of big white flowers. But of course now it's so tall, the flowers are just a mass of white, in June. You don't really see the flowers individually. And there are love and a mist, and what else is growing down around? I used to grow Trachelium ceruleum and put them out. And I built this little greenhouse just thinking, because I'm reading all these things from England and back east, about starting things and protected. It's like silly me, right? I mean, in California, the shade structure is what I use now. The shade structure is useful. The greenhouse is not used for that. It's not needed. So it's crude. And at this point, the ground is still mostly just mowed weeds, but the back pathway is the part that shows gravel. It might have been when I first started getting it ready to put in the PG for the pathway. So I guess we could go to the next slide. So then, if anyone remembers Magic Gardens that Sherry Merciari had started in Berkeley over by Aquatic Park, kind of, that's where I got that archway in the right-hand side. It's kind of a wire frame thing. And I think I talked about those when I talked about the gravel entry garden and its evolution, but that's looking at the back side, and that's early on. That was in the ground back when this was just mowed weeds, but so you can see other plants coming in. In the far background behind the Gunnera, there's also some Phalostaxis nigra, black bamboo, which I thought I'd gotten lucky when people were telling me how bad it could get. In fact, it got very bad after years and years of behaving itself so nicely. One day it was just everywhere in this back part of the garden and across behind the fence also. And so I hired my stepson, and he was an engineering student at the time, and he got a power winch and built a tripod out of 2x4s and got some climbing webbing. And he just dug around where the runners were going, tied the stuff around the webbing around it, and hoisted it up with the power winch. And you could just see it. All of a sudden it would give, and you'd see boing, and the dirt would just fly up, and it would mostly come out intact, which really helped. He did this twice, and then it was almost gone. And then I poisoned the rest over and over until it gave up. And I don't have it anymore, thank God. But yeah, so that's in there. And I think I went to a flower and garden show where there was this beautiful garden with all different colors of formium. And so I was inspired to try to put some in. It didn't work out so well. But I don't know. I still like some of them, but not there. Anything else on that picture I'm missing? Oh, that tree there, that's the, I think that would be the original persimmon tree that was in the yard when I started. Yeah. And
this?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think, let me see. Let me blow that up a little bit. I believe, it could be. I mean, there is a brachychiton in that area. There's a brachychiton rupestris.
Yeah,
there's a couple
that's
of them.
what that looks like.
Oh, okay. Because I was thinking it's near to where I had put a Circidium. Is that what it's not called that anymore? The anyway, it's not that one. I think you're right. I think it's brachychiton Queensland bottle tree. That one is quite big. There's another one that's multi-trunked and much smaller, but I hope one day I'll see a fat Buddha belly trunk on it. But so far, I mean, it's getting girth, but it's not that big. Maybe someday. Oh, and I should say in that photo too, that's the PG pathway is starting to go in. That's the first section I did. So it kind of got me focused on that part of the yard, I guess. That's fun. And this is quite a bit later. This is looking from around where the birches are. There's all this scilla growing around that comes back. It still comes back, of course. A thing like that doesn't give up easily. And then the geranium matarenses are still coming up in that area. I've got the fairy wand that you gave me, Mary, is planted in that area now. Of course, most of the Gunnera is gone by now. Aeonium Zwartkopf in the upper left corner, the black one. That's still there. And I do like Aeoniums, and they like me, they like the mild climate we have. So it just, I'm actually starting to get quite a few. Burl gave me some new ones when I did my only open garden that I did for the conservatory. I just, I didn't, it was a lot of work. So I've only done the one, but Burrow was very helpful to me and gave me so many plants. So thank you, Burrow.
More.
Oh, and then there's that Corsican hellebores. The hellebores are there, and there's some ferns. Actually, the ferns are native California ferns. My father-in-law lived on the Point Reyes Peninsula, just north of Tamales Bay Park. So I would just, loot his property and pick up some nice ferns and things and put them in, and they're still there. They don't get any water, and they have to compete with the roots of the birches, and they don't seem to mind at all. They go dry a little bit, they come back.
And your Sonkas?
Oh yes, that is visible there. Oh yeah, and it's in bloom actually. So that's that Sanchez Sonkas, is it? Palmensis I got from Annie's, and the one, and it kind of makes a nice screen. From the inside, it's like these sunbursts or starbursts or fireworks kind of foliage, and of course the flowers. It's always fun to joke about. You got to stay on top of your dandelion so this doesn't happen to you. But oh, and you can see the foliage just to the left of that. This will also be having yellow flowers, the Telanthrophora grandifolia. This is the plant. That one there is the one I got in a silent auction at the Stribing Arboretum. I paid a lot of money for it too, and it's never done. It's never gotten more than like 8 feet tall, and it looks like a reluctant. It hasn't died, but it's not real happy about its prospects, I don't think. But the one I got from the Berkeley Botanical Garden is a 1 gallon plant for less than a tenth of what I paid for the other one. Is like 3 times bigger. It's got to be 20, 30 feet tall. Yeah.
Has the other one ever flowered? The one you got at the Botanical Garden?
Oh, almost right away. After only a year or two, it was blooming. Yeah. And of course the foliage is, I don't know, which are better. The flowers are pretty big. Leah is not real happy about acid yellow, so the Sonkas is lost on her, and same with the flowers of the Telanthrophora, but I like it. I don't mind it. Purple and yellow, I can live with those. They're common, but so what? The dog.
Purple and yellow is a marvelous combination.
I agree with you. I think so.
Yeah.
I like some contrast.
Maybe Leah doesn't like contrast.
Oh, well, I tell you, this woman has never looked at gray and said, that's gray. It's always, that's green gray. There's something else gray, it's blue gray or something. It's like, I just see gray, but she's got that eye. What can I say? Oh, and then just above Fletcher, this is our 2 or 3 dogs ago, that big starburst of foliage belongs to a veterinaria. That's the big one, the Elba. And Roger Rach told me when I started planting under my redwood tree out along the banks of the creek, I was asking him, what else he would put in under the shade of a redwood. And he mentioned that plant. And he says, don't even bother to root it or just cut, whenever you're ready to cut one off in the backyard, just take it, dig out enough of a hole, throw it in there and throw the soil around it. Doesn't matter if you water it or not, it will grow. And he's been right. And what you leave behind will grow as well.
Sounds dangerous.
Yeah, it's at least it's a willing grower. It's not like that wonky little cutting grown Telanthrophora I get from Stribing. I was so grateful to get it because I'd been looking for it for years, and so when it became available, it's like I made the last bid. I stuck around longer than I normally did to make sure. So then eventually the pond went in, and for a long time it was just a depression in the ground that was a compost pile. But then finally one year, I was trying to figure out, I know this picture is dated 2007, but that's also the date that I first started putting pictures on Flickr. So it's hard to know if it's a little bit older than that. Wouldn't be much older than that. But you can see the Gunnera has gotten bigger by then, and it kind of looks like not so lonely out in the middle of that big blank backyard. And I was, the thing that did it in was the phyllostaxy, the black bamboo, and you can see it in the upper right-hand corner. That's it sticking up there, and it just pierced through that. I used to joke that, oh, these are a couple of big thugs, we'll let them work it out. Well, the bamboo worked it out all right. It just pierced that thing any number of times, and the Gunnera didn't make it, but well, win some, lose some.
So are you saying that the black bamboo killed your Gunnera?
I do think so. I mean, because the Gunnera is put up with, I mean, you'd think Gunnera would want, like be growing in some water or near some water. And I don't water a whole lot in the dry season. Things have to persevere, and it did for a long time. But then when the bamboo escaped, that thing fell. That thing stopped coming back. So I kind of blame the bamboo, although it could just be, I mean, let's face it, perennials don't mean immortal, right? I mean, everything has a lifespan. So it might have been that.
And what's this plant right here in the middle?
Oh, now let's see, I was thinking about that. I saw a better picture of it. I'm not really sure now. I can't remember. It was something I didn't know anything about, but I put it in back before the pond went in, and it was still spilling over for a while. I don't remember.
And you also have this type of tenuous.
Yeah, and I always let a couple come up between the flagstones, but those are one of the ones that if it isn't interfering too much, I mean, I think a couple of wispy ones look kind of nice. Or if you have the space like they do at the Berkeley Botanical Garden to have a field of it, that can look good too. But when it just starts out crowding out things that are of the same general scale, then it's maybe more bother than it's worth. And there's other places in the garden where I just don't, I pull them all out. And of course that aeonium, that's probably in the summer, it looks like it's kind of shrinking back and getting ready to put up with my watering regimen. So at some point, it's like about 9 feet to the corner from the birches. So it occurred to me at some point that this could be a corner that I developed. And being a school teacher, I'd have a summer project, a spring project, and a winter project. So I, had opportunities to do a lot of things. And so I got a slab of redwood, and I always just take a folding chair, and I measured the front of it, the back of it, and you kind of get what feels comfortable. And then I make sure that the bottom of the slab and the back slab are in the same relative position. And then all I did was I put pieces of the cutoff to support it. And I also screwed it in from the back into the wood, and it's held up all this time. It hasn't given out or anything. And I put in some of this gravel stone, and you don't see that anymore. I mean, let's face it, 1 year's worth of foliage coming down from those birches, turns it all to mulch, which is fine too. But there you can see the Sonkus. And I don't know how old this is. The benches came in after if the pond came in 2007 or 6, I don't know. This was sometime later. I didn't do anything with this corner right away. Oh, and actually in this photo too, you can see right behind the birches on the right, the two of them together, there's a large stone. I remember getting those from the Acapulco Rock and Stone, and I got a team of young guys from there who came in, and the ground, it was winter, and the only way we could move it, I thought I was going to be the gentleman customer and just watch them do their thing. No. It's like the four of them together. It was the biggest rock weighed 1,500 pounds, and the other two were a bit smaller. And the biggest stone came through that opening. And to do that, I felt like I was building the pyramids. I had these 4x12s left over from something we took apart up at my father-in-law's place. And we used them as skids, and we had a concrete mixing pan, and we had the stone on that, and we pour water on the skid, and then we had ropes around the rock and a couple guys with pry bars, and it was like all together, oomph, 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 and gradually the pyramids were built. And we got a stone on either side, so it gives you extra seating to face that bench. And then there's one other stone over by closer to the pond, kind of tie them together. Is that good?
Yeah, and then it looks like hellebores and some ferns.
Those are those ferns. Let's see, you can see those. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
right there and
Oh.
right here.
Oh, thanks. Okay. I'm on my phone, so it's not as
Oh.
obvious. Those are some of those are the scilla coming up, but the ferns are the ferns from up at Point Reyes, from my father-in-law's place, and the hellebore is that Corsican one again. And then I think there are some bromeliads back there.
Right there.
I remember the first time David Fikes came over, it was like in the summer or something, and I had gotten several bromeliads from him, and they're still in the pots, and I had not got around to putting them in the ground. Not that that matters too much for them, but anyway. But that one I gave you, Mary, came from David Fikes, and it was from back in this part of the garden that we got it. And I don't know that. Mhm. Yep.
Before we leave this picture, I didn't quite catch the name of that plant that's sort of has ferny leaves on stems.
These?
Oh, in the middle?
Yeah,
Those-
that one, yeah.
That's Soncus, Soncus palmensis, I think. Something Annie's has carried. And if you ever want some, it's not shy about seeding. For a long time, I never got any seedlings come up, but maybe I've either got some winters or been a little more kind with the water in places, but I certainly got some the last year. So if you ever want to try it, you're welcome to.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet.
I'll take up on that.
Okay.
They do produce a lot of fluff. I mean, how many seedlings do you get? Hundreds or like 10?
Rare, it just, I know. And a lot of things like starting as seedlings in that PG stuff, but some reason, not them. They just come up here and there in areas that other plants are growing in. Yeah, I know, I'm surprised. I would think it would be rampant, but it really isn't.
That's what I'm always afraid of with Salcus, because we have so many weedy ones.
Right.
But I do have that one because it is such a nice form.
Yeah, and when you're on the inside looking out, like I say, it's like fireworks. They're these, kind of explosion things that, like a screen of them. Okay, so this is looking out. So those are the two rocks. The one on the right is the one that weighed 1,500 pounds, and they were not at all sure it was going to fit. And I measured. I told them, no, it will fit, and made sure the runner was level and everything, and it came in there. It wasn't easy. And I like this picture because it's one of the ones that make me feel like I'm in nature when I'm in my garden. And that's what I want from my garden. I don't want my garden to call to me as my living room or my kitchen. I want it to remind me that, it's nature, and give me a hit of that. That's what I want. So this area, I was really happy at this point with this area. And I kind of like it with just the green at this moment. I mean, there would be flowers, but you know how that is. They come and go.
And that bench is really comfortable that you built.
Oh, good. And it hasn't fallen yet. I'm sure it's going to fail one of these days. But so far, so good. Yeah, if you just copy a folding chair, you can't go wrong. The tilt for your butt and your back will be about right.
Great idea.
And then there's a variegated yucca just above that. Off to the left, actually, you can see this yellow, is it cortadilla? Is it? It's a pampas grass relative, and the far left-hand corner.
Oh,
Look at that.
there.
And I still had a little bit of gunner there. Huh. I didn't think, I
Yeah.
thought that was gone. Yeah,
Huh.
a survivor. I wonder if I probably still have the black bamboo at that point too then. Oh, well. Its days were numbered. Little did it know. And say there's the tree you see just between the birches. It's kind of a scraggly looking thing. That's the tree I was trying to think of before. You see the branches kind of right up in between the big birch and the pair of birches in the middle in the main gap.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, that thing. That's the I think it wasn't it called Circidium before. And then there's a popular one, desert something. It has yellow flowers and thorns like crazy.
Palo Verde?
Palo Verde, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
So I had that in a raised bed for a while, but it was like the birches. The birches are really messy. That's my one regret for putting them here. But you know, the white vertical lines are kind of pleasing. And I like the reflection in the water. So I'll keep them, but they are a mess. You know, they drop branches and leaves and
Palo
pollen.
Verde?
Oh
No,
no, these
The
birches.
birch.
Oh, these birches.
I think the other was too, though. I think the palo, and of course I have succulents underneath where that is, so they didn't
Yeah.
appreciate it. Yeah.
How old is your Palo Verde?
The Palo Verde, oh well, it's gone now. But you know, the funny thing is, when I pulled it out and I threw it in the compost, I noticed it was. Oh, in fact, I didn't even take it out of a 5-gallon. At first, I put it in a 5-gallon bucket, and then I decided, and I threw it back in the compost, and it was still growing.
Oh my gosh.
It
Oh
wasn't
my
giving up so
gosh.
easily. Oh, in this picture though, you can see what it's like on the inside looking out about the Sanchez and how it makes these little fireworks bursts. It's all green, but you know, kind of give you that kind of circle of explosion, kind of explosive rays from the center.
Yeah.
I like seeing that. Okay, so here's the Calanthophora. This would be the newer one, the one from seedling, and when it was still pretty young. I mean, the leaves are not that high up off the path yet. Now they're so high that I have to get up on a ladder with one of those pole clippers to try to take the dead flower heads off. It's way up there, but and I've lost. Sometimes something else will bang into it in a windstorm and it'll lose a branch, but it doesn't seem to hurt it too much. But I love the big foliage, and the flowers are pretty impressive too. They do make dinner plate size masses of glorified broccoli flowers, I guess, but you know, still pretty cool. And it still looks like the underneath it looks like that Beschrenaria that did bloom, and then I put some of it out by the creek and left some of it. Oh, and you can see just above the aeoniums, above that rock, there's these branches of the rat tail cactus, which is, I looked it up, I think that's a pora cactus it's called. Well, those are the leaves coming down. Oh yeah, there's a couple of them. Yeah, there's 6 in all. It was something I went and visited the lotus land, and I love those planters hanging from oak trees or whatever they are. Just amazing. I mean, they look like flying saucers with these succulents hanging out. So I
Yeah,
had to
they
have
do.
something like that. Yeah, they're cool. I mean, this is a poor man's tribute to that, but you know, I still enjoy seeing them up there, I have to say.
Do you get seedlings of the Calanthophora?
No, I have not. I wish. Because I mean, after growing the one I got as a seedling for like $9.95 or something at the Berkeley Botanical Garden, there's no way I would want a cutting grown plant, you know, it's like, or a tree. I don't know, maybe it's because it's a succulent tree size thing, but it sure did better from seed. I would love you in Point Richmond, I'm sure.
I have one in a pot,
Ah,
but the Dendroceras is much happier.
oh yeah. I'm
A
looking
lot
forward
more
to seeing that
exposed.
photo. I do want to see those photos, so maybe next time.
I'll put them in. next time.
All right. So I guess that's it from this one, huh? And then the next photo really shows kind of the mature look of this area when it's wet season. And that Star of Madeira Echium in the middle there, it's kind of neat at all different times. You know, it'll have the purple flowers, kind of a light purple, and then they'll become ivory, and the ivory will persist. You know, when they're dead, they kind of look like hydrangea or something, not unpleasant. And then eventually they turn brown, and you just cut them off. But and you can see the up in the branches, you can see the rat tail cactus. Yeah, it's like there's 3 of that fuchsia color, and there's 3 orange ones, and the fuchsia one comes into bloom first, and then the orange ones are next, and they're kind of grouped together. So and I do, for as long as I could reach it, the tea tree leaves a lot of thatch underneath as it continues to reach out. So I would go up there and cut all the dead stuff out of there so that it would be as open an area. I kind of wanted it to be bright shade, not gloomy shade. And that has helped, but eventually it'll be beyond my powers to do anymore. But so far so good.
And I see those ropes. What are you doing with the ropes?
Well, you know, it was ostensibly one year, those I have nearby on the inner garden bed in this back area, there's a lot of Cleistocactus straussii, and one wet winter, a number of them came down. That it was okay because all the stumps grew again, and the ones that I moved, they grew too. But I'm sorry, I just blanked on your question, Bart.
The rope.
The rope, the nautical rope. Hey, my father-in-law had been a merchant seaman in one phase of his life. During World War II, and he had a Monterey fishing boat up in Point Reyes at a place called Duck Cove. And so when he died, and the park was going to take back all these properties regardless, and they have. So I just looked around for stuff. I got a propeller from a boat, and I got these nautical ropes, and I got an anvil, and they're all out in the garden. So I used the nautical rope to help support the Talanthophora. It might not have been a great idea. Maybe, not letting it find its way in the wind might have been a mistake, but I guess it's okay. It's the seedling one. Actually, in this picture, the massive flowers of Talanthophora on the right are from the cutting ground. So it has had some nice moments. They just are few and far between now.
And I see the leucodendron.
Yeah, and that was one I got from a sale at Stribing, and it was called Red Gem, and it's supposed to not get that big. Forget it. I think they probably all want to get big. This one certainly did. And I don't know, maybe I didn't cut it enough. It doesn't look that great anymore. I'm still trying to sort it out. We'll see. But it does, I do like that little bit of red up there. And I like all these different shades of color, the different, the purple from the Australian tea tree is nice. And then it's good to have these patches of color. I just think it makes it more interesting.
Well, and that variegated Echium really dominates that scene.
It does. Oh, and I've got some amazing backlit pictures of that, and at other stages when it was smaller, it just glowed. It just one of those things that when it's backlit, it just glows.
Yeah, very nice.
The thing blooming up in the corner there above the yellow is a rat tail cactus?
It is.
Wow. No, that's funny that one's blooming and the other 2 aren't.
I know. I think the other
There's
2
another
like
one
it
there.
would be to the right, and then these ones over to the left are the orange ones, and they just bloom at a slightly different time, a little bit later.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I see.
Oh, but I think the next photo might be show the rat tail cactus, a couple of them from up in their point of view. I think I got up in the tree to get a couple pictures.
So Mark, my rat tail goes to the ground and starts running along the ground.
Really?
Yes, and it roots.
Huh?
And,
Oh.
but I only have the pink one.
This one
Any
here?
chance that you're sharing?
Oh, absolutely. I know you know how to do that, but I
Yes,
could try.
he does.
Well, I guess
Well,
any
just break a
branch.
piece off and bring it up
Exactly.
to the next
Okay.
meeting.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can do
Great.
that. So for November, maybe, huh?
Yeah.
How
All right.
high up is yours? I mean, Kristen, how far down is yours going? Is it like 10
Oh, no,
feet?
I didn't hang it in a tree. Mine just is
Oh.
on a planter, but it runs along in the garden and I've had to pull it out because it wants to, and it grows in a lot of shade. I mean, I have it in
Wow.
morning sun, but where they run to is almost complete shade. I'm just stunned by it.
Well, and these look like they're in a lot of shade, Mark.
They're
Yeah, they are.
they're underneath that Australian tea tree, so even though it is shaded, it is pretty open shade. I've managed to keep the thatch up. So quite a bit of light comes in.
Mark, you're in Berkeley, son.
I know.
Yeah.
But contrary to what you hear, you can grow plants in Berkeley.
No, I'm just saying, you didn't see 110 or 115 this year, right? You were
No.
probably whining at
No.
95.
Yeah.
I know. Oh, I know. You people are miracle workers. I mean,
No, we're not. There's
I'm
just
sort of
places like heat.
yeah. I wouldn't get away. I would never become a gardener anywhere else. I mean, I don't know zip. I didn't know anything to begin with. I'm just doing art projects with plants, so
Yeah.
it's a good thing I'm in a benign climate because I wouldn't have got away with it.
Well, another question I have for you, Mark, is that looking at all that big coarse foliage and looking at all those cactus flowers, I'm not seeing any like snail or slug damage whatsoever.
Well, I haven't gotten any on the Tilanthophora. But you know what? They do go up, those Cleistocactus straussii. I've seen them go right up the sides of those. Although I don't see a lot of snails anymore anyway. I don't know. I mean, I have done massive snail kills, and mostly squishing. But I don't know. Maybe I'm not sure what's the
Here's
reason.
do you mulch?
So
You
yeah.
let stuff fall to the ground and you don't blow it away. You don't see dirt, right?
Oh, well, I do sometimes I kind of mixed, and I do bring in mulch too. And I do move mulch around.
Yeah, well, because the first food source for a snail is mulch. It's not your plant.
Oh,
If you mulch, I don't have a snail problem in my garden. I have it in my potting area because there's no organics for them to eat there, but they always in the garden. I rarely see any snail damage. And I'm pretty sure from the stuff I've read, it's because I mulch and they would prefer to eat the mulch.
Interesting. Huh.
They want to eat decayed matter. So the reason I won't join Master Gardeners, and Steve Morse was a very big member of it. And I said, every year they publish an article in the paper and say, remove all your leaves away from the plants. And I think that's the dumbest thing I have ever read in my life. And they call themselves Master Gardeners. And they say, well, they hide the snails, but if the snails and the slugs for that matter have mulch, they don't do damage because they're being fed.
They're being bait and switched away.
No, well, their first choice is detritus. That is their first choice of something to eat. Read about them. That's what they want.
Well, and then why a lot of us don't have snails is because snails are a delicacy for rats and opossums.
Right.
Oh, well,
And if you
that
have
would
rats
explain
or opossums, I've only seen like 3 or 4 snails on my property, but I've got a bazillion slugs. They more than make up for the snail absence.
this year, the rat population around our property has been amazing. I don't know that that's really worth it as a way for snails, but
not necessarily.
Living along a creek,
Yeah.
they will come, and being a 120-year-old building, they will find a way in periodically. Ugh.
Yeah.
For the slugs, I go out at night with a flashlight. Of course, it scares the devil out of my neighbors, but because here's somebody creeping around with a flashlight. But that's when I mean, in fact, their bodies glow in the flashlight, so I can really find them pretty easily and pick them off. And
I
then,
find them so hard. I mean,
I do
snails, you
that
know,
too.
yeah.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
good for you because slugs are hard. I mean, they're slippery and hard to pick up
yeah, they're kind of
I
pretty
have
disgusting. Yeah.
and disgusting. too.
hemostat and weeder sorts of things, tongs that you can
Ah.
just pick them off.
And squish them
Oh,
in the
nice.
process. Yeah. Okay.
Nice.
So that these last couple of photos kind of this is the way I think of the Birch Corner now, is it's kind of this big woodsy natural feeling thing, and it's kind of, there's a pathway that kind of goes around the pond. There's a near path, a far path, and it circles around, and really it's just a strolling garden. I mean, you know, it wasn't designed to be that, but you just kind of, you know, you hear about things, and so you realize after the fact, oh, I made a strolling garden. You know, that's what that is. So should we look at I think there's a couple more photos of the pond, and this is what I like most about the pond. I did put a what do you call it, papyrus plant on a ledge inside there, but really I like seeing the sky coming up, you know, the light coming up from below, and I like seeing the plants reflected. To me, this is, oh, and there's that plant you were asking about, Bart, on the
Yeah,
right.
I
I don't
see.
know if that tells you from there. It's kind of a little nondescript or something, but I kind of liked it. But I just really, what I really like though is I do like seeing, and here you can just barely see the above ground, and then it's mostly what you see is just reflected. And then there's other ones where the wind is whipping the surface a little bit, and you know, making a little design of the image. It's kind of fun.
Is it a shrubby Lonicera?
Oh, that does
Could
sound
be.
like it. That does sound like, I think it was a Lonicera. Is that what you say? I
Mhm.
think I would have been saying Lancera or something like that, but yeah, yes, that was what it is. It comes to mind now. Thank you. And then the next photo, I think it's taken near the same time, and it shows a little more of the above ground. And there's those Scylla again, and there's the stone that's closer to the pond, and you can see the bench just up through the middle there. And again, I just like I like the, you know, reflection top and bottom. It's a little slice of nature, a little something you see if you go out to lakes and stuff. And there's the Sanchez and bloom reflected as well. And those white verticals. How can I say no?
Yeah, the reflection really is beautiful, Mark.
Oh, thanks. And then I think the last one is a looking down. I think I got up in one of the trees again and was trying to get a picture to show the pond and some of the Talanthophoria and the Sanchez is in bloom. And then I have two dogs that are no longer around there, so it's back a while. And there's that Cordilleria, is it the pampas grass relative? No seedlings from that, but boy, if you grab those leaves and tug, you know, it's like a bandsaw blade. So not for the faint of heart. And I guess this is, oh, and there's the black bamboo is still there. So, and yet, well, who knows? I mean, I don't, oh, there is a little bit of, there's a little gunner there, that little bit of it. Maybe it was dying back already by the time the bamboo escaped. I don't know. There was something I read recently. I thought it made me think of this. It said, I used to think that things were real and change was something that happened to them over time. Now I think that change is real and things are events that happen over time. And I think that's so true of gardens, you know. I mean, it's sort of like that, you know, the things come and go, but everything's changing. Every year is a little different.
I agree.
Yep.
And that's what's wonderful about them.
I agree. Yeah. And I mean, it's part of what connects you to the greater world, right? I mean, you know, beyond the parts that we carefully control and remind us that we are part of something bigger.
But that's a really interesting opposition of concepts, change and real.
Right? I know. I mean, which is real. Everything flows. I'm reading a lot of this philosopher guy, Ian McGilchrist, out of Scotland, I think. But he wrote the book, The Master and His Emissary, and then he's written something called The Matter with Things. And just, boy, blow your mind. I mean, it's like a summary of all the philosophy of the Western world, all these other things, and just fascinating. But I've been reading a lot of that when I could be reading good novels, but oh well.
Sounds like productive time regardless.
Yeah, either way, I do like a little of that. In fact, it's hard to make time for the garden. I'm kidding. It's good to diversify your holdings. I think I better get off and let somebody else on. I want to see what else is going on.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mark, for sharing the history of this portion of your garden.
You're very welcome.
And Kristen Yanker Hansen is up next from Danville, our hot interior gardener.
Am I the only one from the hot area here
Today,
Really? Well, then most of this will not be interesting to you.
No, it is.
Okay, well, actually, this is an Ammercrinum. I have two clones. One is the one that on the left is the one that is, I can't remember who grows it and the name of it, but it is the one that is generally available in the trade. The leaves look like crinum leaves, and the flowers, what I find wonderful about it, I have basic other crinums, but they're more spring, early summer bloomers. And this Ammercrinum on the left will start blooming in July and then continue oftentimes until November. And then literally, I believe it was in 2019, Bill the Bulb Baron spoke to our garden club. I think it was either 2018 or 2019. I did not know he had cancer at the time, but he was still very actively growing and hybridizing. And he created a hybrid that he thought would turn out with red flowers because the amaryllis that he had red flowers. None of them came out red flowered, but what I thought was extremely interesting is it also is an evergreen Ammercrinum. However, the leaves look like Amaryllis belladonna leaves. And the flowers are much narrower, but it is an evergreen plant. I put it in several different places and it's evergreen, no question. I have one that hasn't bloomed and I don't know if I got all different seedlings or the same clump from him. Obviously, he's not around to ask anymore. But I thought it was just interesting that the hybrid could be like a crinum or could be like an amaryllis, except have the attribute of being evergreen.
Do you cut the blooms for the table?
Sometimes. I always say the flowers are dead in the vase longer than alive in my house, because my housekeeping is, I'm not, I like doing floral arrangements, but then cleaning them up is a challenge for me. So I thought it was interesting that you could have it. Basically, it almost looks like a pink blooming agapanthus, really, except that they bloom much longer than an agapanthus, by the way. This has also been blooming since July and it's still blooming.
Really? So just inflorescence after inflorescence?
Yes.
Wow.
Nice.
And that the one on the left, that's the same clone, and that one.
No. The one on the left was in the trade years ago. You can get it at Plant Delights. I don't know if I got it there or if I got it somewhere else, but the one on the right, I know I got from Bill the Bulb Baron, since it was a recent acquisition.
But the image on the left has two inflorescences.
Yes.
One is really tall and one looks short.
Yeah, I know. It's just the way it's on a hill. And it, not a hill, but
Yeah. Mound.
Mound. Yeah. And it just looks that way. It's the way the photograph came out.
Kristen, do you give them periodic irrigations through the dry season?
Yes, I don't know. I haven't tried them dry. And I intend to do that next. The one on the from Bill I just got, so last year it didn't bloom at all, and because they were very young bulbs, but now they're multiplying. So I intend to start doing some divisions of them and see what happens. I never tried the Amacrinum. They should grow dry, except I have an Amacrinum that wasn't getting water because the heads were blocked, and it didn't look as lush. So I did cut my watering back, and I will tell you this: if you live in Berkeley, I am subsidizing your water. And let me explain. East Bay Mud has one of the worst reputations for water system maintenance. It does a 1% of its assets are replaced every year. So every 100 years, except reality is if they put in shoddy piping, for example, which went on during the 70s, those areas would be replaced first. But the water system that East Bay Mud maintains started out in Berkeley and Oakland, and those actually were started in the 1850s. So they're over 100 years old. And all I can tell you is the way the water system is structured, the people in the hotter areas, which use more water, are in higher tiers by a huge percentage. And I've concluded that if we didn't exist, you people in Berkeley and those areas, Oakland, would be paying a lot more for your water, because it's not about the water, it's about the infrastructure. And that's a big issue that I'm beginning to get very irritated. So don't criticize me for my water usage. I am making it possible for you to pay less for water. Now, having said that, I
So,
also,
Chris-
no, I
Kristen.
believe in overhead water. Let me finish. I believe in overhead watering, because overhead watering, which I had a friend tell me this, when you water and the leaves get wet, they absorb water through their leaves. And no one ever talked about that, and all this deep watering crap. I did it all. I did exactly, there was a drought when I moved here in 1987. I did the deep watering 20 minutes twice a week. That's 40 minutes of water a week. My friend told me, you don't have to water that deep. You don't have to water that much. So I switched to 4 minutes a day, every day. Do the math. We went from 40 minutes a week to 28 minutes. And that's when my garden exploded. It exploded. It became a jungle. So having learned that, the other thing I must tell you is I've decided, my friends converted their yard all to drip. They did everything right. And we were asked to cut 15% this time. And now they're being dinged by East Bay Mud every pay period. I cut back 30%. I am doing everything they ask, and I am below the maximum amount by a substantial amount, and I get no ding letters. So my conclusion is, in nature, to have the kind of garden I have, there are dry periods also. I lived in New Jersey. We had a drought. My father was in Arizona complaining about the horrible drought they were having, and we had a longer period of no rain, 9 weeks, than they did in Arizona at that time. And yet things survived. And then, of course, the rains came back with gusto. But I believe that if you water plants, their natural instinct is to survive, to create roots, to grow, to build strength. And then when you have a drought, they survive. So my garden doesn't look bad, considering that I have reduced the watering by a third at least, if not more than that.
So what does your overhead watering look like? A mist or a spray?
Oh, they're the
or-
old-fashioned sprayers.
Okay.
And you can reduce it. You can up it or you can reduce it. the bigger issue is, I mean, we hit a lot of high temperatures, but the bigger issue is that the foliage gets wet. I water at night. Another thing they tell you never to do. I only water at night. They have water on their leaves a lot longer as a result. We live in a very dry climate. We have been, in the last few years, I've seen 15% humidity every day.
Wow.
Now,
Ooh.
nighttimes go up to 40, 50%. Now with this fog, we've been up to 75% at night. But in the heat of the summer, we're generally at 10 to 15%. We're like the desert in the heat of the summer. The nighttime we rise because the fog comes in, but it's a brutal climate. And yet, if you water like I water, and I subsidize you guys, so thank you.
Thank you.
Uh, How many
Thank
minutes
you.
are you watering a day?
Well, right now I did up at the time because I'm only at 3 days a week versus 7.
Uh-huh.
So I went to 5 minutes for 3 days a week.
Only 5 minutes a day?
For 3 days a week, so 15 minutes a week.
Wow.
So you
I'm
can do it.
surprised.
Well, I mean,
That's great.
but
You got me thinking.
I'm growing hibiscus syriacus. You see it in the back of the picture on the left. I'm growing perennial hibiscus. They didn't do as well this year. I'm talking about our Mashutis types, and they suffered this year, but they bloomed, they grew, they survived.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
a large Syriacus that I have never watered, period.
Yeah, but where do you live?
Yeah, but it has been
In the
dry,
water.
and the soil back there is dry because I don't even water pots near that plant because it's just way back in a corner and I just never even look at it hardly. But it flowers like crazy anyway. It just doesn't have a whole lot of foliage.
But it does have a lot of humidity from the water.
Yeah.
That's, people don't think that the redwoods, I've read an article in the summer, they get up to 10 inches of moisture every summer. That's a lot.
Easily.
Yes.
Fog drip.
And the other thing I do have to tell you, my
Fog
gardener
capture.
thought I went on a big campaign because I have 11 water spigots all over the yard for hoses and stuff because it's such a big yard. And I wanted to put an extra valve on each one in case it breaks because I don't have Dick anymore. And so he did that and he saw a pipe and thought, oh, this doesn't belong to anything. Well, it turned out it was watering a large section of my yard. And I didn't notice there was a problem until I saw that my bromeliads that I planted had browned up. And I said, Carlos, why is this turning brown on me? And then he figured out that he had, capped it. And that my Syriacus, and we've gone now for 2 months with no water in the heat, July and August, never stopped blooming.
Wow.
So, yeah, Malvaceae, especially the woody ones are very tough, I think.
So Kristen, first of all, I have 2 things to say. One is you're not paying Edmund enough because I get a bill for $5 on my water, and the rest of the bill, $65, is for all the infrastructure work that you're doing.
I'm
So-
sorry, Beryl, your bill is very to me.
And the other thing I want to tell you is I learned that watering just a little bit, I do it every day, and at a client's garden, I did it every day, just a little bit. I learned that from you and it worked very well.
Yeah.
And then
deep root watering, that is such, but I can't say anything because all the experts know better than I do, so I've stopped talking about it.
Right.
So I retired a year ago, and I referred a person to take over the garden. And when I told her, what my watering scheme was, which is on the automatic irrigation, she thought it was completely crazy to do that, even though everything looked just fine. And so I guess, you know, their water bill must be like many, many times more now because she, you know, uses the other.
She uses
Um,
the expert's advice. She knows, she went
Right.
to
Yes.
school and studied this.
Right.
So
Well, you made
whatever.
at least one new convert tonight.
You?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really amazed, you know, using Kristen's technique because I try to use as little water as possible. And it's amazing how plants just, well, I'm not really talking about trees, although, you know, this is true for trees also because I have trees, you know, in the same bed as the other plants. And I just give them a little bit of water and they're just doing fine.
Well,
Thank
don't
you,
forget
Kristen.
those plants underneath those trees are also giving off humidity.
Well,
There's,
no,
I
that's
think
true.
they don't ever look at humidity as part of the moisture picture when they analyze all this stuff. And Ted Kipping also commented, because I mulch a lot, not so much for water retention in the ground because the ground gets dry anyway, but I mulch because I have it and it feeds the soil and so on. But he said to me though that you don't need to water deep because the nutrition is in the top 2 or 3 inches, 2 inches really of the soil, and you mulch so heavily that you're getting nutrition to the roots that are feeding. And I think that that does play a role also. The feeder roots are at the surface. But again, you know, I could just see all these master gardeners and experts that he was giving me hell for what I say to you. But none of them are here tonight. So I'm now willing to admit my deep, dark, evil
Yeah.
secret.
Yes, a
Well, I'd
great
say
secret.
some of it though does depend on what you have. If you have redwood trees and you are watering them 5 minutes a day, you are not going to have much underneath them. I mean, you'll have some things, but you won't have a diverse garden. Those trees are just too voracious. Some trees are. And as I recall, you don't have a whole lot of trees.
Are you kidding?
I'm trying to think. I've only been
I'm
to your
surrounded
garden
by
once.
redwoods. Every neighbor has redwoods.
Yes, but I mean, but not in your yard.
No, I have in my front yard. You just are thinking about the lawn. I have birch trees, Mark, and I don't water them that much. They're not as big as yours. But I was forced to keep them by Dick, and now I keep them kind of as a memory. And I did lose one in the last years. And now my son brings me 150 gallons of water every 2 weeks. And he is devoted to keeping those last 2 redwoods alive because of my husband. So that's where the water goes. But they're mulched, but they are also heavily underplanted. And I think that plays a role. I have, I don't know if it's rupestris. I got it from Martin. I think it is rupestris. It's never bloomed, Brachychiton rupestris, but I have one of those. I have Populneus. I have 3 Palo Verdes. I have 2 a shoestring acacia. It's massive. I have trees I don't even know the name of anymore. I mean, it's a problem. I have fruit trees. I have a lot of trees. It's just most of them are in the front. I mean, I treed a Loropetalum. Now I have a Loropetalum tree because I wanted the understory. I have this giant magnolia that I got from Don Mahoney. He didn't know what it was, and no one does, but it's already probably 30 feet tall, and I planted it from a 4-inch pot. The elms, one of the elms, I'm afraid, is rotting completely. Barry Coates told me that it's a junk tree and I should get rid of it, but Dick was a tree hugger, so I had to prune it the last time, but now I'm going to have it cut. And the other one is coming down too, but I've already planted a tilia to be there because that does use less water. But I'll tell you, those elm trees, every time I cut them, it's like it gives them new life. I have trees. In fact, my front yard, I have the whole street is planted with catalpas. You don't remember that? I got a lot of catalpa trees.
Yes.
Especially on the left side as you face your
So-
property on the
Yes,
left
but I
side.
have two
Yeah.
catalpas there. I have a
I do remember the
I have chalopsis trees
Yeah.
now that I think of it. I have a lot of trees.
But
Right,
those
but-
are drought trees.
Right, those aren't the ones that are really problematic water users.
You
Or-
mean like my Cornus capitata?
No, that one isn't even either. I
And I
mean,
have crepe myrtles.
oh, no, I'm
Those
thinking,
are ancient.
well, your elms would be aggressive root systems. Morris alba, again, redwood trees, things like that that have.
Well, my
just
neighbor's
all
roots-
kinds- Or
My neighbor's
ashes.
roots are in my yard, trust me.
Yeah.
I actually have my
they're a
gardener
lot
come
more
down and cut them.
problematic.
Oh, they're being cut regularly, the roots at my house. And they know it. I told them, you don't water your trees enough. If I have to water them, then I'm cutting the roots. And I do. I'm vicious.
Well, I think we're ready for your next photo.
Yeah. So this is Lilium catuspi, and this is a swamp lily from the East Coast. It is growing in a pot that has no hole. I put in, it's growing with my carnivorous plants. Unfortunately, I didn't pay attention, and so did some cattails get in that pot. That's what you see those strappy leaves of. Martin, I have a group on Facebook that I started thinking that maybe 1,000 people would join. 54,000 have now joined. It's called Really Rare Plants. And I've developed a lot of friendships because of it. And one of them is from a guy named James Van Horn. I don't know if any of you know him. And he came in from, I think it was either North Carolina or South Carolina. He's living in Oregon. I finally met him and he's helping me with the page, but he and Martin know each other and he offered to give me one, but it never happened. So Martin said to me, Kristen, I have these bulbs. Do you want them? And I said, sure, I'd like to try it. And I put it in and Martin kept saying to me, did they bloom yet? Did they bloom yet? And I said, no. And then he posted on Facebook his that bloomed up there in Eureka where he lives. And he asked me and I said, oh yeah, it just started. So I'm very excited. This lily in my pot, I was pulling at this grassy like stuff out, thinking it was some new weed that I got in there. It was the lily spreading. So I stopped pulling that stuff out, but I have to redo the pot once the winter comes and get that cattail out. But I just am so excited to have something happening because, you know, if you grow carnivorous plants, they have these spectacular blooms in the spring and then the foliage all summer. And now it's all beginning to die and look dead. And then this lily comes out and blooms. I thought that was cool.
And all of you call that Catesby? I've always heard it Catesby.
Well, maybe it's Catesby.
I mean,
Then I spelled it wrong.
well, actually, I've checked the spelling, and so that's the correct spelling.
Yeah, well, I did what Martin wrote me, and he's pretty good when he does that. I always have the problem with Lilium. I always want to have two L's in there. I guess because of Eli Lilly. Never mind.
Yeah, lots of people want to put two L's in
Yeah,
the middle.
but I wrote it as he wrote it. I double checked because I know I make mistakes a lot with spelling.
Yeah, when I saw it, it looked a little off, so I did check online in Tropicos and other places.
Were you surprised that you even saw this picture as the one I sent you?
What?
Were you surprised I sent this picture in when I sent it?
Yeah, although someone here at the garden is growing this same one.
Really? Atilda?
Yeah. No, in Pinole. One of
Well,
our gardeners.
Martin's growing it in Eureka, which is
Yeah.
cool. there,
Well, I mean,
in
and
my
it really
opinion.
seems odd that it's growing and thriving all these places, and it's a very rare lily.
Well, not only that, so I always tell people, yes, we have heat, but my tomato crop was a disaster this year relative to how many tomato plants I put in, because we have days that get up to 95 and nights that go below 55. We're talking 50-degree swings.
Yeah, yeah.
And tomatoes need 90 or less to fertilize and 55 or more to set. And no one out here has had a good tomato year.
But I've read though that the tomatoes stop producing over 100.
Yeah,
You know, that's
well,
just their
they
habit.
don't like it really hot.
No.
But that over 100 didn't really happen until September, so they would have been slowing down anyway.
Really? Wow.
Yeah,
we-
well, I mean, you think of-
95.
You think
Okay.
of solanums, they're all from, or all the edible, all the tomatoes are from the Andes. They're all from South
Ah.
America.
Mexico.
Well, they're from all the way down, aren't they? Different ones.
I
There are a
thought
lot
that
of different
the
tomatoes.
Andes are potatoes, but I think tomatoes are from Mexico. I'd have to look that up.
I think there are a lot of different taxa.
On the news,
Sure.
they said the tomatoes were going to be in short supply this year and were going to be fairly expensive. I didn't hear the reason, but I heard this in the last day or two.
Well, I'm not surprised. There is a drought and the valley has been affected by that. Dryland tomatoes, which I know are in fashion when you go to the farmers markets, but they don't grow them that way in the valley where they grow most of the tomatoes and do the canning. And the other part is, if the valley is northern San Joaquin, anywhere near the Sacramento River, that means they do get the fog effect. They get the fog effect all the way up into Davis. So they can have cool nights even though they have hot days. And it comes back to, you know, it has to be below 90 or below to fertilize and 55 or above to set. And if we didn't have that, if they didn't have warm nights, they're screwed.
Yeah, well, and I mean, from where I'm originally from, Hollister, I mean, that's all row crop and much of it is tomatoes these days. And that it is because it's the San Juan Bautista and Hollister valleys, that they're not the Central Valley because they're on this side of the
Right.
Diablo range, but that they're that zone 14, sunset zone 14, just like Davis. There is an afternoon wind to cool things off, but the tomatoes and the tomato canneries are located there. I mean, it's a huge producer.
Well, as I said, California's summers are odd now. It's really cold at night. I mean, it's great for sleeping, but it's a problem for growing. That's it.
Okay, well, thank you, Kristen.
Sorry, my pictures aren't very clear, but I'm just learning how to use my phone. It's
Oh,
kinda
actually, I
interesting.
like that one. I liked all of yours.
Well,
Kristen, you
or-
tell us where where that lily is native to?
it's native to the south, so Louisiana, I think over to Florida and up into it's got to be in swampy areas. It's a swamp lily, basically.
Uh-huh.
So I think it grows all the way north into Georgia, maybe even into South Carolina. And of course, with climate change, which is happening there, it's moving north, I'm sure.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's exciting to have
It-
something so bizarre, right?
Really an interesting flower, the way it's,
Yeah, the way it
Open.
opens up there. Yeah, I think that's interesting too.
Yeah, almost clawed petals
Right. Yeah.
or tepals in that case. Okay, well, and our next person is Beryl Golden from Berkeley.
and she lives in Richmond.
Oh, should I have put Richmond?
Please.
Okay,
I'm
I'll,
insulted.
oh, I should, sorry about that. So take it away. Your first one's the Lomandra.
Yeah, thank you, Bart, for including this. I looked at it the other day and I said, you know, I really like this plant. I'd like to show it to other people. I bought it just a couple of months ago, and I'm not really sure where I'm going to put it yet, but you know, the foliage is on the blue spectrum, and the flowers are pretty showy for Lomandra.
Is it fragrant?
I don't, you know, I forgot the flowers, maybe? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I think Lomandra has fragrance, doesn't it?
Well, it has, maybe, you know, I don't remember. I think the flowers, if they're touched, maybe have an interesting fragrance, but I don't think the fragrance carries in
Into the air. Mhm. Yeah, you have to get close to it. I do know that, but
Uh-huh. I'll have to check that out. I think it does, but only if I touch them.
How big is it supposed to get? I mean, I think some of them get quite large, don't they?
Yeah, I don't, you know, I forgot, I'm sorry. I forgot to look at that information on the label. This, I think, is a medium-sized one. Don't they usually grow expand in their diameter as opposed to the height?
Laterally, yeah.
Yeah, they make bigger clumps, but some of them are fairly tall plants. I know that when I lived in LA, there was one of them was naturalizing along, I think, parts of the LA River, and it was getting pretty big.
I see in digplantco.com says Lomandra, small compact Lomandra with very fine foliage, nice blue-green to gray-green color, loaded with fragrant yellow-orange flower spikes in spring. So are those the seed heads there, Beryl?
No, those are the flowers.
Yeah, they're flowers.
So this picture from spring, it says a spring flowering. So spring blooming now?
Yeah, I
Oh,
took that
darn.
picture yesterday.
Well, and I really like this color down here and how it goes up. I mean, that's very different color for a grass
is.
type plant.
But if it's in the ground, you probably won't see
Right,
that.
yeah. Sometimes it's better to keep plants in containers.
Well, Bart, nobody knows that better than you.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Urban
Ellen, did you see the height of this when you looked it up?
It didn't say, it said compact, small compact. And then this one said, this is from Urban Tree Farms, evergreen grass, it's not really grass, but it says small yellow seed heads in spring. So those are the flowers. So evidently it has the seeds in the spring. Looks like for that one. Oh, 3 feet wide, excuse me. Pardon?
I was saying, was that El Nativo nursery?
Yes, it was. Yes, it is.
It doesn't say anything about the height.
No, but they're kind of rounded. So maybe 3 by 3, I would guess. I don't know.
So shall we go to the
Pretty.
next one, Beryl?
Yeah, and then later I'll run out to my porch and see if it gives the height on the label, the plant
Okay.
label. Oh, you think, okay.
I'm
it's
wondering, I'd like to see actual base of those leaves. There isn't a real clear picture showing the actual base of a leaf, but it's reminding me a bit of John Durley.
The base of the leaf?
Yeah, where it attaches to the stem. I mean,
Yeah, it
how
looks like,
auriculate is it? Because you can't really see it because it's not clear in the photos.
it looks like it's pretty flat where it attaches to the stem. Okay, I'll take a better picture of it.
Yeah, or just bring in a picture or bring in a piece of it to the November meeting.
Okay, if Mark will give me a lift.
But yeah, is the flower on it pink or is it more white?
Do I remember the answer to that question? I think it's pink.
Yeah, again, John Durley usually is a good pink and very coppery new growth, and then it can age to that sort of blue or silvery color.
How old is this one?
You know, I have no, I think it's been in the ground for more than 20 years.
Oh,
But I cut the height and the width of the foliage back every year. My neighbor does not want it to come over on the other side of the fence, and you know, I like to keep it. I actually prefer to keep it compact anyway, you know. So I really cut it back each stem individually, you know, I don't shear it. I cut back each stem after it flowers. And if I had done it sooner, then it wouldn't have developed a bare trunk.
Nice to see the bare trunk though.
Yeah, was
I
gonna
like it.
say,
Yeah.
nice seeing the smooth bark.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that also. And it has that, you know, typical dead wood down at the bottom. And, you know, I usually don't leave stubs like that, but, you know, Arctostophilus usually has a lot of dead stubs in nature, right?
Frequently, especially as they get older.
Uh-huh, yeah. I don't remember where I got this. You disabused me. I used to think it was myrtle wolf, but
Oh, well,
Yeah.
they're related. They're all of those are out of Pomeroensis. However, I usually think of myrtle as having a narrower leaf, and myrtle has the most intense pink flower of any manzanita.
yeah. No, you definitely set me straight on that part.
And that I have a myrtle wolf at my house in a pot that I've had for many years, because we grew it at Rancho as well. It is, myrtle wolf is one of the nicest ones. And I suppose it's possible this could be it, but seeing the leaf base would make a big difference.
Okay, thanks. I think I once saw a picture of a sedum that looked like this, but maybe I should have looked it up before the meeting. This is in a 1 gallon container, and it grows upright vertically like a little tree, like a little, it could be a little bonsai, which I'm not trying to make it, but it kind of looks like a little, it
It
kind of looks
does.
like a bonsai. And
Hmm.
I don't know the name.
That's very pretty. Be nice to know what it is.
Well, I'll spend some time trying to find out. I have a feeling Daryl, what's his name's partner? Daryl.
Casper.
Yeah, Casper's partner. I have a feeling he once posted something about this plant. So I'll do some research and try to find out.
How long does it flower for you?
At the most, a month. I thought it was dead. I did not know that this is a deciduous plant. I thought it died. Fortunately, I didn't get rid of it.
No, I think it's a very good looking, interesting plant.
Did you take the picture with a phone?
I did, yes.
Do you know if you can look up the name on the phone and see if that tells you any?
Oh, yes, I did look it up, and it gave me a couple of possibilities which were incorrect.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Huh.
So Yeah, you know, I have a Pixel phone, which is a Google phone. So like with my Pixel phone, it comes with that lens thing, you know, that looks up the plant. I forgot what it's called. So yeah.
It's not
Um,
perfect, but sometimes it gives you a clue.
Right.
Yeah, in this case, it was both suggestions were way off.
Hmm.
Maybe I'll take a picture of the leaves without the flowers and
Oh, I think that'll be even worse. That foliage looks very generic succulent plant.
yeah, you're right.
Looks
I have,
crashula to me.
yeah, I think crashula, I have a hybrid crashula that I bet this is one of the parents. And I know it's a hybrid, the one that I have. So I'll see if I can run down something as well.
Thank you.
Aren't all sedums in the Crassula family?
Yes, yes. Yeah, except that, what is it? No, I was gonna say that they were different geographically, but no. The genera. Anyway,
And
very interesting.
there's a seedling of this plant in the container. There's a tiny new plant coming
Huh.
up in the container. So that's fun.
Yeah,
I like that.
fun, but could be scary. Sometimes
Oh,
sedums and crassulas can get out of hand.
I don't think I'm giving it good enough care to worry about it.
Looks very nice though.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I wasn't really thinking about taking pictures for this meeting, and then I realized, hey, wait a minute, I have a couple of things that I really like. Why not share it?
Sure. Okay. And let's see.
Yeah.
And then this.
Yeah, no, I really want to explain this picture. I could not, this lavender Mongave was in a container for 4 or 5 years, and I decided I wanted to put it in the ground, and I stomped vigorously on the container. I could not get it out of the container. I did not want to cut the container, but you can see on the left is the bottom of the container. I just could not get it out of the container. And underneath the saw is some of the roots. And I left about 1/4 of the root system of this plant because I'm lazy. I don't like to dig big holes if I don't have to. And so I put the top of this plant in the ground about 3 or 4 months ago in an area where it gets almost no sun. Well, in the winter, it gets absolutely no direct sun. And I'm amazed, the color is quite good. I'll take a picture of the plant now because, you know, it retained the purple color of the foliage. And it's looking quite good as far as the foliage color goes, and it's happy where it is. So this is one of the this is an example of, you know, things I do to plants.
Lizzie Borden.
Well, you know, the other one was a picture I sent in about 6 months ago of an agave that I beheaded, and it's doing quite well.
Cool.
I beheaded it and then I, planted the head in container and doing just fine.
Yeah, they're tough.
Very. Next,
That's it.
your Aeonium decorum.
Yeah, and it looks awful now because I haven't kept up on cutting the bare stems. So last time I pruned the bare stems off of this plant, I planted each
Good.
head in a container. So I have about at least 20 new potential plants. So what I have to do now is cut the bare stems again and then just stick the new little plants in the ground to fill in the empty space, if you follow what I'm saying. I love these colors, that when the leaves get old, they change to.
Yeah, and those markings are unusual. I mean, I know some species of Aeoniums do that. Brown lines or purple lines can be very attractive.
Is this the plant in the ground barrel, or are these the pieces ready to be planted?
No, this is actually in the ground.
I think it looks fantastic. It's nice and full.
Yeah,
Well, I'll give you some, Mark.
I had something like this, and I've got a little bit left, so I won't turn you down.
Okay. And if you or Mary bring me to the meeting, I'll bring more.
Bring some what?
if you
I'll bring.
Beryl to the meeting, she'll bring more.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
well,
So I
thank
guess,
you, Beryl.
thank you, Bart, for your help.
Sure. I'm in Point Richmond and Tilden, and that I just threw in some things that I've been playing around with, some fall blooming crocuses, and that I'd actually gotten them over a year ago. So this is their second year. And with any of these fall blooming crocuses, I'm always sort of wondering how they'll live in this area, because a lot of these things tend to want more cold. But so far, this clone of Crocus kochkianus called Reliant has been pretty good overall. You can see just how prolific that is. That's all from planted one bulb in this pot last year. And that's what it flowered last year, just one or two, but then this year it's just lots. And again, these are the 14, 16 inch, 4-inch deep tree pots,
Oh,
so that they've got a lot of root space. And they seem to be very happy. There's the non-cultivar, just kochkianus to the right, much bigger, but not as happy. Again, the one on the left is the same individual.
Where's that native to, Bart?
I believe Turkey, but I'm not positive. It's Mediterranean somewhere.
yeah.
And that you can see it does have sort of the interesting stigmas of some of the crocuses. The next ones you'll see are more of the classic edible ones.
And so that was the fall blooming crocus as well.
Oh,
Yes, all of these are in flower at my house right now, this week. And this is saffron, Crocus sativas, what I'd read about it was that they wanted to be planted really deep. And so I planted them almost at the bottom of these 16-inch high containers. And that last year they didn't bloom at all. And this
Oh,
year they're
no.
just coming up and flowering. So clearly that information seems to have been right. The other thing that I'd read was that in warmer climates, they can just kind of fade away fairly quickly, especially if they're not planted deep. And so again, mine are coming back, more foliage this year and flowers this year. So I think they're adapting. And again, that's nice, rich color. And that's the pollen. And this is the part that you would eat as saffron. One of the most expensive things there is by weight.
Just for information, I use saffron as a painkiller, and I buy it. It's an Indian company that sells it, but you can buy a fairly sizable box, and it's $46 on Amazon. Just sharing.
How much is that box? I mean, is it like
It's
an
46
ounce or 5 ounces?
Oh, it's like a tenth of the cost of what you pay in the store for saffron.
Ah,
And I don't use it for food other than as a painkiller. So
well, and so if you look at this and you look at that stigma, the red, then this is another one that is related, and that Crocus sativus is kind of a cultivar species, or what's that word?
cultivated.
Yeah, and that not really known from the wild directly, but this is one of the things that it is thought to have been derived from, Crocus tomasii. There's a couple of things that they theorize are involved in sativus, but you can see this does have the red stigmas also, and that this is very small, right on the ground. I mean, this is the same size container. And for those of you who know Oxalis corniculatus, that is cotyledons of Oxalis corniculata, the bane of potted plants. So anyway, these are just coming up right now, whereas those other ones have been up a little bit longer. These just came up this week. And this is the other one that it's thought to be somewhat related to and with edible stigmas, Crocus cartwrightianus, which again is very small, very tight to the ground. And this just came up within the last week also. And this is a cultivar called Marcel. Sometimes I've seen the colors of these online for these cultivars varies a bit, but so one wonders about them. But I'm just delighted that they're coming back with more flowers, because it's always interesting to have bulbs in the fall. And lots of South Africans, of course, bloom in the fall.
Where do you get all these different species of crocus?
I got all of these from the same grower up in Oregon, Ilahe, Illahe. And this last year, they had a huge bulb list, and I ordered way too many. And then I figured, well, I'll get a lot more this year. No, their list this year was really small in comparison, and didn't even have a lot of the things I got last year. So anyway, yeah, whenever these things are available, they're nice to pick up and just play with. I mean, I also have Crocus willemii, which is the one that was always recommended for fall bloom in LA. And it hasn't come back yet. But since all of these are just coming up and flowering now, I'm figuring it will come up also.
Bart, do you give these summer dry treatment?
Pretty dry, but again, I'm right by the ocean, so my dry is not the same as Christenstrae, and that I do have these in full sun. So I know I probably should give them a little bit of dappled shade to make the flowers last longer. But like I said, I'm just happy that they're coming back and they're getting bigger, not smaller.
Could you spell the name of that grower? Because I just looked it up and I couldn't find it.
No,
ALLAH.
I is in it. Elahi, ILLAHE.
ILLAHE.
Yeah, that's close. Maybe it's just
Oh,
one
wait, no,
L.
I found it. I found it. Thanks.
Yeah,
That's a really delicate flower, Bart. That's really nice.
yeah. I've always liked crocuses, but the spring ones I've never been able to grow at all. So I decided the fall ones should be interesting, since that most of them are Eastern Greece and Eastern Mediterranean, that they should be adapted to California.
Did you plant all of them deep?
No, the sativas I planted really deep. The other ones I planted, probably about 3 inches.
Uh-huh.
And then Narinis are in flower right now. I thought this was kind of interesting. These are 2 different pots, 2 different clones, and the upper one is more red and the lower one is more orange. But the interesting thing is to look at the pollen. I mean, the pollen on this is white, and that these, at least before they really are fully open, almost look blue-purple. And that the other really cool things about Narinis, for people who don't grow them, is that in the tepals, there's this unusual like crystalline structure. So they actually kind of sparkle in sunlight. It's unlike any other plant in that characteristic.
Yeah, when Mark put some photos of his on Facebook, you can see that crystalline.
Yeah,
sparkle.
you can see it a little bit through here and a little bit through there. I mean, you can see it on the original photo better than you can see it on the computer screen.
Uh-huh.
And I
The
was
red is
just,
striking.
what?
The red is really nice.
Yeah. And I
But
was,
that one that Burl saw was actually Charlotte's flower. Thank you, Charlotte.
I was just given a double flowered one of these that hasn't flowered yet, but it's a big bulb. So it's just beginning to come up now, and I'm not sure if it's going to be foliage or a flower. And then I've been growing these cyclamen gracums that I got from Nevin, who got them from Wayne Roderick. And this is just, it's been in this pot for years. And this is what it looked like on August 30th, when it really was in peak bloom. But this is it on the 11th. Now the foliage is out and there's still more flowers coming. I mean, it's really amazing how long these bloom for and how heavy they bloom. And it's still in a 1-gallon nursery can. I had this down in LA. So I've had this probably like 15 years.
And the bulb is probably filled the whole pot by now.
Yes, it's very, very large, about like that. And that, but they're little seedling ones all around it, because you can see some of these leaves are a little bit different, and that they're actually different little plants around the big one.
So you
Does it produce seed?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and it seeds around limitedly, but I have a number of these. This one is my favorite individual of them, but this is another one. And again, I like them for the foliage as much as the flower.
Mhm.
You can see
At least.
this one again was just this week, and that you can see all of the dead flowers from this year already. and there's still buds. I mean, they just go on and on and on and on.
Do you grow them in shade?
The more, like many shade-ish plants, the more sun they get, the more they flower, but then the more they can burn up. So I have them on the west side of my house. This one is in the most shade. This actually, it's under a trough, and that's some concrete blocks that hold the trough up, and that it's just pushed right under. And so it's sticking out more toward the sun. The other one gets a lot more sun and always does. I have about 4 or 5 of these just dotted around. I keep meaning to collect the seeds and really grow a bunch of them deliberately, but I never have. I mean,
I
but
find that they come very easily from seed.
they do. I
Yeah.
mean, like I said, they just keep coming up in the pots, and sometimes they'll come up adjacent.
It's interesting little protuberances at the bottom of where the petals reflects.
Yes, yeah.
Can we see the earlier photos? Because I didn't notice those protuberances in the
Yeah.
first.
They're
Oh.
there. And even on the first one, they're very much there.
Uh-huh.
And there you can see the edge of the corm here and here. It is filling up a lot of it, but these little leaves down here are the seedlings that are all around.
You are brutal, Bart. Just brutal.
And that's actually an Adenothamnus, a proteaceous shrub from Australia.
Is this cyclamen fragrant?
I have not noticed it being that fragrant, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. Some are very fragrant. I mean, you
Yes.
know, yeah.
And I do grow persicums and other ones, but and even some coums, and the one from Africa, I've grown Rolfskianum, but really the Gracums are my favorite for foliage and flowers. So they're fun and easy. I don't have to do anything to them. They will let me know when they want water. They'll send up flowers or whatever, and then I'll give them some water and off they go. Otherwise, I will just hit them with a little bit of water occasionally during the summer, but don't overwater them or you could rot it out. And then some buckwheats here at the Botanic Garden. And again, these are all taken within the last week as well. Eriogonum cinereum, the ashy leaf buckwheat, is found along the coast of Southern California, where it sort of billows down coastal bluffs and is just spectacular. It can be enormous. We're not even sure how many plants are there in this clump, whether it's just one giant or whether it's a bunch of them all growing together here at the garden. The flowers, well, here you can see why it's called ashy leaf. It's got the gray-green leaves, grayish stems, and then the slightly pinkish flower, but very prolific. We really weren't sure how much you could cut this back, but the last year it got just way out of hand. And so we cut back part of it really hard, not knowing what it was going to do. It didn't phase it at all. It came right back, unlike some things that subshrubs that when you cut back hard into some older growth, a lot of times they won't do anything. This one didn't care. Seems to be a lot more flexible than many buckwheats. And again, big. Lots of insects on it when it's in sunlight.
Does it get any summer water?
Not much. This can be grown pretty dry. And then the rosemary leaf buckwheat, one of our most widespread buckwheats in California, Eriogonum fasciculatum, or rosemary leaved, or California buckwheat. The interesting thing about this plant is that usually it'll be just sort of a mound, and it is fairly woody. However, if you grow this against a chain link fence, it'll grow all the way to the top and actually be more like a vine and flower the whole way to the ground. Some of them did that at Rancho Santa Ana just on their own. And yet it's something that I've always thought about, people want a plant that can be narrow, but yet flower a long time and, provide a lot of insect habitat, beneficial insects, etc. This plant really does that. It flowers basically all summer long. And then it does the rust flowered flowers at the end. You can cut it back fairly hard too, and it comes back reliably.
So what is it, how does it react with the fence? Does it use the fence for support or?
Yeah, it just sort of weaves into it by itself. You don't even have to train it. It just
Oh.
does it to get tall. And again, it's not even that wide when you do that. I think maybe about 3 feet or so, maybe a little longer with the flower spikes on it or inflorescences. But it doesn't take up as much room if it's grown on a fence as if it's free growing.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and it's something I don't think most people know about that plant. And then the wand buckwheat, or Eriogonum elongatum. This one, again, you look at an individual stem, it's not that impressive, not that interesting. But yet, if you plant big drifts of this, and like Betsy Klepsch had, probably about 50 of them together in her front garden. And again, just amazing vertical accents. And that's sort of what it looks like when you bunch them together. That's all it in the background, and then one bigger one in the foreground. And again, all buckwheats are great pollinator plants and beneficial insects. And these are all flowering right now. The other one that I particularly like is this. Eriogonum wrightii variety nodosum. This was something that Theo and I collected several years ago from cuttings, and they never really look like there's much of a plant there. It's just these white stems. They'll have little tiny leaves in the spring, but this is actually very actively growing, and yet it's just this white ball of stems, little tiny groups of flowers that you almost never notice. And again, just an interesting, unusual white or silvery plant. What's growing in it is one of our very few native vines, and it's either Mirandia or Mirandella anteriniflora. That in California, it's just out in the, I think it's one location in the Providence Mountains. And then it also occurs in Arizona, New Mexico, and northern Mexico. And the flowers can be red or sort of a blue violet. At Rancho, I was always growing the blue violet one and always wondered what the red one looked like. And then suddenly we just had this red one sort of fall into our laps. So very nice. I have no idea. Usually they're grown as annuals, but they can be perennials. And the flowers look just like a snapdragon. But if you know, the genus Mirandia in general has open-faced flowers, and these are very close, snapdragon-like, and that's why sometimes it's in its own genus, Mirandella.
Bart, did you, that Eriogonum, you grew, the cuttings were of the stems rooted?
Yeah, I mean, we got it in the spring when there were a few leaves. And it was new growth. And I said, well, we should try that and see if we can get it, because trying to get seeds of this is practically impossible, because you never see any flowers that are noticeable. But yet when it's in the garden and when it's in the sun, I mean, this is on a foggy day so that you can actually kind of see the structure of it. But in the sun, it is just white.
Wow.
It's really quite a showy plant.
Art, what kind
So
of soil do these?
Propagating it?
We're not propagating it yet. I mean, we have two little groups of them. This one that I think is 2 plants, and another place where there are 3. And then as far as what the soil mix is, this is our desert section where we redid it completely. There is essentially 0 organic material in there. I think there was originally 10%. And this was done back in 2015. So there is no organic material left. Lava rock, sand, very well drained, and then these large rocks. Like most buckwheats, they're not that difficult to grow. It's just getting them and getting them started. Then they'd last for quite a while.
If you have a lot of sun.
Yeah, full sun. All buckwheats want, or almost all buckwheats want full sun. And then I know I've talked about Chalopsis a number of times, but that what I wanted to talk about tonight are just 4 of them that are flowering right now, late. Because here in Berkeley, we didn't get that much, or in the Berkeley Hills, we didn't get that much hot weather. And some of these plants are just flowering for the first time right now. Whereas usually Chalopsis will start flowering, particularly in hotter zones, in April, May. And that I brought up a lot of these clones that I had collected at while I was at Rancho Santa Ana. Lois Adams is supposed to produce almost no seed pods, which some people really like. But that the interesting thing that I wanted to show here tonight was just how different the flowers photograph on different days. It's all with the same iPhone. It's all the same plant. Or there, in this case, it's 2 individuals. But just look at the flower form and color. And then this is another day, similarly overcast. And again, very roughly crinkly. And then there's another that's even fuller flowered. So even though these are clones and that they're definitively these clones, they don't necessarily look alike all the time. And that some of them even look like others. The next one, and again, this is Lois Adams, which has narrower leaves. That dark green leaf in the back is a different one. And we have, when I potted these up, we actually wrote the names on the pots so that labels come and go, but writing on a pot stays. Bubba is the one with the really wider leaves that are always dark green, and also a very nice large flower. And there are 2 images of Bubba.
So does it look that's different color to your eye also?
Yes, it does. I mean, on these different days and different lighting, it just does. But yet it is the same plant. And you can see, yes, it's the one with the really broad, dark green leaves.
How large a plant is that, Bart?
Well, these are all in 2-gallon cans, but that they'll all get to be about 15, 20 feet. I think probably everyone knows that the world record Chalopsis linearis is that enormous one that's at the Bancroft Garden in Walnut Creek. It is bigger than any other Chalopsis anywhere. The other thing is that, as Kristen was mentioning earlier with the Chatalpas, this is one of the parents of the Chatalpa. It's a cross between Chalopsis linearis and Catalpa that was done in Tashkent, but that clearly using different Chalopsis parents, you could get some much more deeply or richly colored Chatalpas, most likely. And that I'm not sure if everyone knows that both Chalopsis and Catalpa, or Chatalpa, the hybrid and this species, can be grown as herbaceous perennials. You can whack them to the ground every year if you want to. And that it was also a plant that was used a lot for quote unquote saving the Dust Bowl for erosion control in the Midwest. It's a very hardy, very durable plant, and it loves heat. And then Lucretia Hamilton was one that was selected for just dark color. And again, it's interesting that these three are all sort of similar color tones. But this one, you can see the top edge of the two top petals. You can actually see how just cut and frilled they are. And then same plant, different day. Much, much richer colored, but still you can see some of that fringe on that upper right petal. And it also has a nice dark green leaf. But then the last one is the most different for many reasons. And that's it. It can have the biggest flower. It's pale pink. But the really interesting thing about Warren Jones is that most years it is evergreen, whereas Chilopsis itself usually will lose its leaves starting about now and not leaf out until April or May. It's one of those long deciduous plants, but yet because of these willow-like leaves, it's also a very nice and easy plant to garden under. I mean, and again, for a hot climate, it is a really good plant to be planting because you can bring them into flower just by deep watering them. I'm not sure how it would react to being watered every day, but I know that if you interval water them, you can make it flower in waves all the way through October, November in a hotter area. This one also, you can see a little bit of that stem. It tends to have a pubescent stems and lightly pubescent leaves as well. It again is one of the more different of the cultivars and selections of the plant. And then the last thing is I was at Stribing on Friday for the Bagnet meeting, and we were walking around in the, gosh, I'm not even sure what to call it anymore. They're now calling them all combined the Gardens of Golden Gate, something like that. So anyway, this is a South African plant that reminded me a lot of Salvia hermium with those colored bracts. I mean, and this does have these really rich pink colored bracts up in the upper part of the inflorescence, not all the way down, but just up at the tops. And there are some fertile flowers up there as well, but some of them are reduced to just bracts. They do have the showy calyx and then this really unusual flower arrangement with the pollen being presented two different places, clearly probably bird related. And it's in mint family. but I'm not familiar with it at all. It was just an unusual plant in flower that caught my eye that I thought would be worth sharing. The plant is about 6 feet or so in height. It looks like it could be cut back and kept more dense and more floriferous. And it's South African. So I think that was the last of mine. And then Mary, do you want to unmute and show some things?
So in all the fury of all the rock garden plants, I put in a mini, I mean, I only have a tiny space, but I put in a rock garden that kind of extends all the way around the corner here out to there. And I'm filling it up. It's wonderful to have. It's really fun to work with. And my main my main thing was, I am so sick of chopping giant plants back that this is not going to do to me. So I'm going to be able to maintain this with a very little bit of work. And I'm really happy about that. So it's just now getting started, but I have a lot of wonderful things. My favorites are the Raulias right here. And there's a couple that are up here, but they're so small. You can't see them now, but I'll show you. And I'm hoping they're the kind that kind of drip over the edges of the rocks. And I really love those. Okay, hey, this one came from the seed exchange, Drama Queen. They're both somniferum, but look how different they could be. But I did get this one last year out of the seed exchange, and I was delighted with the flower that it produced because I didn't see that online. And then this is the version of somniferum that I saw in Victor Reiter's garden. They had a very pale one that they called somniferum, and so I gave them a pod of this. But then I started the same plants pods, so the seeds, a little bit later in the summer, maybe August 1st, and they were pretty pale, but they had the dense inner core. So I think it depends on the quality of the sun, what you will get. But I love the poppies. They're just really fun and they're so easy to grow. So I always start a bunch of them. This is,
especially the darker purplish color will be reseeding a lot in your garden.
Oh, they reseed all the time and I love it. This is the only plant that I like to reseed because it's easy to move if you need to. And this was growing with the tomatoes and I just did not care to pull it out. I liked it better than the tomatoes, so it was okay. But they do reseed all over the place and I think that's great for these poppies, yeah. This next one is from Bart Help Me. I bought it at Tilden Plant Sale about a year or so ago, and it's actually a little bit redder than that in the picture, in real life. And this plant flowers almost 12 months a year for me. It just never stops. It keeps going and going. It's not as floriferous in the dead of winter, but there's still flowers there all the time. It's amazing. And I broke off a chunk from I put it in the ground and then I broke a chunk off. It's rather brittle, and put it in a pot and it took right away and it produced this really lovely plant that just flowers and flowers. Bart, do you know the name of the species?
Well, it's photographing very, very pink.
It's really more burgundy.
Sometime we'll have to get together and see a live flower. And I'm pretty sure then I'll know which one it is.
Okay, I'll bring it. I will, because I know it'll be in bloom in November.
Great.
It just never quits. Okay. Oh, and then I got this from a neighbor. This is a native California Aristolochia, Dutchman's pipe, and it was just so sweet, and it flowered right away first year. And this a terrible picture that's so blurry, but it was way down back in the depths of this. It was under a bunch of plants, and so I I couldn't see that it was blurry, but this Aristolochia is very sweet and I love it a lot. Okay, then at Bart's suggestion that I really could grow Sarracenias and Drosera and all that, and so I got some at the botanical garden sale and I started growing them and it flowered and the Drosera flowered, everything. I have them in one pot all together. And then that of course sits in water. And here's this is the red cross, Damon's red cross. There's the foliage of the plant. And this is my Opuntia Santa Rita that, you know, it's odd. It's in full sun, it flowers great, but it's not turning purple. This is when I brought it up from the high desert, it was very purple, but it just didn't retain the purpleness. And I don't know what.
You
I
live
thought-
in Berkeley. That's what the issue
I live in
is.
Berkeley. I know it. You should see. Yeah, I'm trying to get a Palo Verde going, and the poor little sick thing. It wants to be so much hotter than it is. But anyway, they're there. They're going. They're working on it. This one, I was sick of this taking up too much space in my house, so I just took it outside and put it in the ground, and now it's flowering every year. And if anybody knows how to propagate the seeds, please contact me at another time. But I would love, look at all the seeds. I would love to be able to figure out how to, they just, you know, eventually turn to mush even if you clip it off, but they're so pretty and it's growing very well in my garden. I like it. And this one is one of these rock garden plants. So it's tiny and the smell of camphor is so strong. You would never want to eat this plant as a thyme, but it is beautiful. I love the smell of the camphor. It kind of cleans out your nasal passages. It's a very sweet little one. So I'm hoping that I will get it in the rock garden eventually, but I wanted it to kind of adjust to the climate first. And okay, and then I don't think I have very many left. This one is one that I put in the seed exchange every year. I use this one for a wall. It to cover up other things that I don't want to have to look at. And it is so easy to grow. Impatiens balfouri, it's just a gem, and it flowers, I would say, probably 8 or 9 months of the year. It's still flowering out there. Some of the plants are, you know, getting old and tired and soggy, but this is still growing strong, and it will probably be another good month before it gives up. And oh, and then Bart, I got this, you brought this into the drawing table. Do you remember what it is? There's the foliage right here, and it's such a pretty plant. Giant bloom, a very tiny plant. It's in a like less than maybe 4-inch pot, maybe not that big.
Wow. And I brought it in? Are you sure?
Well, I thought you brought it to the raffle table. I don't want to call it a raffle.
I selected it from the raffle table, but
okay.
Or for the plant drawing table.
Yeah.
Kiamara will know what that one is.
Okay, good. I'll take a picture in and ask her. I don't know what it is, but it's a no water in the summer, my kind of plant. Summer dry, so that's it. That's my favorite. So anyway, it's a beautiful little flower.
Wow.
And then of course this every year from the East Bay Nursery, I get both ladybugs and the, what do you call them, the little walking sticks, the
praying mantis.
Praying mantis, just love them. They're so cute. And I waited like 2.5 months from the time that I bought this little plastic container until and then one day, all of them emerged at once. It was so bizarre. Yeah, nature is just too weird to be true. And so I released them in an area where I had lots of aphids on something, and plenty of water out there, and they are just so cute. So I bump into them every now and then, and they're a lot bigger than this, but they were just dear. I thought they were just cute as bugs, as the saying goes. Okay, that's it.
They don't eat the foliage? as when they're adults?
No, they eat bugs. They're carnivorous. They eat,
Carnivorous.
yeah, they eat oh, white flies. You know, actually, since I released them this year, I had a terrible year on my lemon tree with white flies last year. And when I released them, I didn't have any problem this year. You know, I'm sure that most of them didn't survive, or they went off to other people's yards or whatever, but the ones that were there kept those white flies at bay like crazy. So I'm gonna be down there and buying another one in the spring. I'm gonna try to remember what month I bought it, or I'll just call them. But that and the ladybugs, I love to release into my garden. And I don't know, I don't see any lace wings for sale, but I'll buy those if if they are ever presented to me, because they're another one that just eats the bugs that you don't want in your garden. So go for it, little buddies. They're so cute.
If people mix them up with walking sticks, and walking sticks do eat the foliage.
Oh, walking sticks are different?
Yeah,
I did not know that. I
they're
did not know.
related, I believe, but the walking sticks don't have those front two praying legs. They just have regular legs. I get really big ones like this
Oh my.
in my yard
Wow.
on a couple of plants. They seem to really hang out in, I have several different kinds of coprosmas. They're always lurking inside those. And when I water them heavily, they come up. And then I have a big trough of Dendrobium kingianum. And when I water that really heavy, one or two come up from that too.
This is the walking sticks?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my, I've not seen those. These guys are of course hatchlings. So this one on my hand is just a baby, but they got to be, when I bumped into them many times in the garden, and they were maybe 3 times the size, but they were not huge at all. And of course you have to look carefully to see them, because they really do blend in, and they're so cute. Yeah, I think they're just great.
The walking sticks, they get the color of the foliage that they're eating. And you know, they'll be right on the stem, so they are hard to look. They come mostly in the evening at night, unless you pour a lot of water. So
what do they like to eat? What kind of foliage?
You know, I've been lucky that I haven't seen so much of them, but they were hanging around in my alstroemerias.
Oh, really?
Oh, I don't like that.
And you know, but you see all the eaten foliage, and so you know something's around. But they
right.
really clean for a while. So
yeah.
And then I've seen them sometimes in my oxalis, the one with the dark color, and they get just as dark as that foliage.
Oh, huh.
Gee, they really adapt to what they're eating, huh? Wow,
That's why you
amazing.
like to show them at school, you know, in camouflage and science classes, and
yeah,
and then
that's
they
right.
let them out they're not supposed to let them out in our gardens, but
yeah. Well, these I love, and I will look up walking stick and see how they look different. I know I didn't even know that was a different. I thought those 2 names applied to the same thing, but apparently not. Anyway, this is just tiny babies here, and they got a lot bigger. Okay, that's it.
What season do you look for them?
I do. Well, I look for them because I want to see if they lasted, and you know, but
I'm sorry. I meant season, not reason. Sorry.
What season? I think it was mid-spring that I found them, and then they literally did not come out until early summer.
Cool.
And I bought it because if you don't buy it right away, the egg case, then it was just a tiny egg case, you know, looked like a little thing that would fall off a tree. And so I just kept them kept them on the back porch, actually, so they were not too hot, too cold, just kind of even. And then they all came out, hatched the very same day. That amazed me because, you
Cool.
know, God, that's a clock. That's an internal clock that works. So like the Swiss trains. So anyway, yeah. Yeah. So that's all. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone for participating today. And I guess I don't think that there are any announcements other than see you at our November.
Yeah, who's speaking?
Ken Lavin from the Green Alliance, and he'll be telling stories about California early plant explorers and plant names that are familiar with us, and who they are and what they do, and all that type stuff. So that should be fun.
And remember that that'll be our last of our bigger plant sales.
And then we're having a party on the December 6th, I think it
Yes.
is. That's a Zoom.
All right.
Good night. I
Good
enjoyed
night.
everybody sharing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.